Welcome to another episode of Listen Loudly. My name is Jocelyn Thompson Rule, and today I'm going to be interviewing a dear friend and author, Emma Dabiri, author of Disobedient Bodies, which we'll be discussing today, and also other fitness movement type vibes as per usual. So I'm just going to introduce her as she is in her book. Emma Dabiri is an Irish-Nigerian academic, author and broadcaster. She spent over a decade as a teaching fellow in the African department at SOAS. She's a final year visual sociology PhD researcher at Goldsmiths and author of the Sunday Times bestseller What White People Can Do Next and Don't Touch My Hair. In 2023, she was appointed as a fellow of the Royal Society of Literature. I loved recording this episode. I love where our conversation went, and I really hope you enjoy it. Okay, Emma Dabiri, welcome. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. I'm really happy to be catching up with you. It's been like way too long.
Yeah,
how are you?
I'm very well. And yes, it has been way too long. I feel like it was summer of last year that we were maybe sat down late night, which for me never happens. You're more of a social butterfly. For me, I was like, I'm exhausted. But yes, it's been a minute. and a hilarious one from memory.
Girl.
So Emma, I've already introduced you in the intro. You are an extraordinary woman. I am so honored to know you and consider you as a friend. And actually, we haven't known each other that long. We met in, I want to say 2020 or 2021. It was definitely in the height of COVID times. It might have been early 2021. Yeah. And when we met, because I was training you, we discovered that we had so many similarities. Like we were like freaked out. So Irish Jamaican, Irish Nigerian. We've been like ships passing in the night. Also, because when I was living in Ireland up until 7, you had then moved, when I moved to London, that was kind of when you moved to Ireland. And then when I went back to uni at 19, you then came to London. So we were ships passing in the night. We both worked in Japan, randomly teaching English at the same time. We both have 2 little boys around the same age. And we were just like, and I remember each time like, stop, no, me too. I'm so glad that we finally met and we are no longer at ships passing in the night. I've got your 3 books here, Emma. Imagine 1, 2, 3, Don't Touch My Hair, Disobedient Bodies, which we're talking about today, and What White People Can Do Next. Now, I really, really wanted to talk about Disobedient Bodies, your most recent book. Which is also, it's snack size, so I'm into it. And
handbag.
Can stick it in your handbag and be like, yeah, that shit has got to change. So why did you write it?
So it was a commission. Well, I was approached by the Wellcome Trust, and the Wellcome Collection, who are they have like a huge museum on Euston Road, and they're one of the biggest founders of medical and scientific research in the UK, and they do these wonderful exhibitions every year, and one of their big ones this year was called The Cult of Beauty. So they'd read my previous books and they'd approached me about writing a book to accompany the exhibition, but it wasn't going to be a book about the exhibition, it was just going to be a book about beauty, and it was as open and as broad ranging as that. And they were like, would you be interested in doing that? And I was like, yes, I would, because there are actually, I was just like, it's huge. What are the aspects of this that I want to focus on, explore more fully myself, and like immerse myself in more and understand better. I guess there were ideas that I had written about in my first book, Don't Touch My Hair, about how beauty is understood in Western culture and Western discourse and philosophy, and then how it's understood differently in other traditions. And I wanted to like kind of look more. So that was something I had like really like I had touched on in Don't Touch My Hair, and then I wanted to focus like more explicitly on that. I was really fascinated by, I guess that one of the primary question, or one of the primary questions, was why is it that everyone I know, every woman I know certainly, and I think actually increasingly this is happening with men as well, but certainly every woman I know that currently or at some point in their life, you know, has felt like deep inadequacy and insecurity about their appearance and their relationship to their body. And that is across the board, kind of irrespective of how they actually look. And one of the things that we're told is that's because of, you know, unrealistic beauty standards and because of the advertising industry. And as I've said before, it's not that those things aren't without great influence, but it's something, I was just like, no, it's something more deeply seated than that. Where does this come from? So the book was kind of my exploration of where those negative attitudes about our appearance and negative attitudes about our bodies, where they come from. Is that type of negativity something that is universal, or are there other kind of philosophical traditions and subsequently beauty cultures that are less self-flagellating and are more able to actually celebrate and enjoy the experience of embodiment, rather than be disconnected from it and have this sense of self-loathing about ourselves?
Yeah, which is a huge thing. And you go so well. And I have to say, when I was reading the book, I laughed so hard at some parts when you were talking about being a teen, growing up and getting ready to go out. There were some just really prominent things in your memory. And of course, this is in Ireland. So this smell of hairspray, the need for Silco Purple. And then what was the upgrade to Marlboro Lights?
Marlboro Lights. We got classier.
You're a living. And also the term ride as well, which in Ireland is someone who's really fit, someone who you really fancy. And that it crossed genders as well. It was like, you know, anyone could be a ride.
It's gender non-specific.
Yes. And I know that on some of your Instagram posts, when you are looking fabulous, and I'll just put ride, and I'm like, Emma gets it. I don't need to explain this to anyone else.
I love it.
Just like riot.
So
You talk about this getting ready. You talk about this kind of, you know, need to be beautiful, to be seen by the opposite sex. This whole, I guess, separation and this kind of definition of who you are based on how you look, rather than anything beyond that kind of superficial layer. And you mentioned just before about disembodiment, and I often say it's like this disassociation between the body and mind that I find so much when coaching others. This idea of kind of being so disconnected to your body and this pursuit of fitness, and often this pursuit of an aesthetic that requires you, in fact, to be in tune with your body. But that there's just this outcome, this end goal that you want to be about your body, but you don't want to have that connection to get there. And you mentioned that some of the earlier philosophers like Plato and Descartes, they deemed the body to be subservient to the mind. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on that? Because it starts to show, as you were saying, you wanted to go a little bit deeper than, oh, it's just the beauty industry or, you know, advertising industry that has us. And if you think back to, 1600s, all of a sudden then we have a much deeper conversation around how early that was planted in our minds and how that's continued just to, you know, flourish to this day.
Yeah, and it's even earlier than that. Like it's back to like at least, you know, like ancient Greece. Okay, so basically, this dualism, this idea of the separation. So this binary way of seeing the world, which from Descartes, it becomes just before the Enlightenment, like that actually is that's something that becomes more like consolidated and like reified, and it applies itself not just to a mind body separation, but to this binary way. It's like man woman, like black white, like gay straight, good bad, perfect flawed. We see the world through this binary, through binary categories. But if we even go back to Plato, we see this mind body separation within his philosophy, and this idea that the mind is associated with the cerebral, like lofty intellectual pursuits, and the body is something that like Saint Augustine refers to, like the slimy desires of the flesh, the body. And think about like in Christianity, and this is particularly pronounced in Catholicism, but like the mortification of the flesh. Like think about that term. Think about those attitudes, that idea of like punishing the body because it is this gross, base thing that needs to be disciplined by the mind. And that they're seen as, kind of inherently separate. And then within that separation, there's also this side, the body also, the binary was gendered. It was men, specifically, like European men, who came to be associated with the rationality, with the intellectualism of the mind, and women, and then like racialized, minoritized people came to be associated with, like, understood more as bodies. So that stigma that was already attached to bodies is then like transferred to those groups, and white European men are seen as these kind of these almost like this disembodied, rational, objective thinkers, and everybody else is far more mired in the body, with all of the kind of like attendant stigmas that that came to be associated with the body. And even with Descartes' I think therefore I am, this idea that it's thinking that is the primary mode of being and existence, and just further reinforcing that idea that what is embodied is not what is in the body, what the body is, that we have bodies as well, rather than that we are bodies, and that the body is like this secondary thing that needs to be kind of controlled and punished by the mind. And then you can get into like loads of conversations about like consciousness and the necessity that we actually have as a species to not be constantly thinking, and to actually be more operating like in harmony, like with our bodies.
And actually you
for me that's like a challenge, like
yeah, 100%.
Sorry, as an academic and somebody who's like, traditionally, historically, not really like hated sports, hated exercising, felt very self-conscious about my body. I'm like, oh, I can think my way out of everything. I can intellectualize everything. And obviously, like, I hold that in high esteem, but it is not everything at all.
And just you even saying it reminds me, you talking about being an academic. I remember you posted, I don't know how long ago it was, that you had got a message from somebody saying that they were disappointed with the aesthetic of your Instagram, because they thought you as an academic would have your page a little bit more academic, like not any pictures of you going out looking whatever, that this person was disappointed in the look of your Instagram feed. What?
It was one picture in particular, like it was one picture that really triggered her. It was like I had a hot pink, like very short, like crinkle bodycon dress, and that pushed her over the edge. And she was just like, oh, having read like one of your books, she was just like, I expected something different from your page, but I guess do you know what? She thought I was way younger than I was as well. And she was like, oh, well, I guess I don't even think I don't know what she said. She couldn't have called me Gen Z, but whatever she said, she was just like, oh, you're that generation. You're like TikTok. I don't know, whatever. And I was far closer in age to this woman than she imagined. But yeah, she wasn't
just disappointed in you, Emma. How dare you wear a bodycon hot pink dress and be smart? Imagine. Now you also talked about there just the discipline of the mind and the way in which that there's this control over the body, and that is that language of discipline is really, really rife in the fitness industry, and this idea that if you're not that, then you're just this complete failure. So again, this kind of idea of discipline, this kind of idea of the power of the mind, which the mind is incredibly powerful, but again, it's not over and above the body. But in fitness, in movement, it's easier for you to be disciplined if you have less things in your environment that take up your time, or in fact, just, wherever you are in life. So it's easier to get up at whatever time to do your workout or start your day with your journal or whatever, if you have the discipline to do it, again, over the physical. So just that language has stayed with us, and particularly in fitness. And I think that what I much prefer is this, yes, there is a level of, you have to go, okay, do you know what, I need to do this. I need to set myself up in such a way that I can do this and achieve whatever fitness goal it is. But it's not this rigid thing that if you don't get to do that, then you're a failure. And the fitness industry makes so much of its money off of that. And having been in the industry for so long now, what worked back in the day still works now and will continue to work moving forward. But of course, the industry will kind of, revive new concepts, new ideas, just in a different format. And you want to, of course, everybody would like to not have to wait or take their time to get to where they want to get to. But all of these things take time. And you referred to in the book, this idea, the kind of, again, the separation now for everybody, are these kind of two movements, fighting one another, of kind of feminism and girl boss feminism. And the girl boss feminism is the, how productive can I be? Yep, on top of the world. Everything's quick. Everything's just in and out, in and out, in and out. And you spoke of that as more of a snack than nourishment. And I kind of the word nourishment or nourish has kind of been taken over a little bit in the fitness industry, and I find it a little bit annoying now. But this idea of a slowing down, so we talk about nourishing foods, and I'm here and I'm in the morning and I'm with my nourishing green juice, it's just like, come on. But
a modification of like everything.
Yeah, but just this kind of polarity between the two to actually achieve embodiment, or this kind of fleeting embodiment that is never satisfying, that is really, really quick. And then you're on to the next thing. So you're never slowing down. And it's just, it's the complete opposite to going, okay, you know what, I'm just going to take a step back for a second. Some of the things that we did when we were together was even just breathing, reconnecting with your your breath. I know for me, after I had Bjorn, my eldest, I had a cesarean section, and I was in the hands of a very, very wonderful woman, Lindsay Matthews, and some of my work to get back into my body, and I don't mean to snap back, I mean to just reconnect with my body, was just breathing. Obviously, because you have this like little tiny baby inside you, and your insides are kind of squished all over the place. And it was just like this kind of reconnection. And I was like, wow, this is amazing when I was just doing these breathing exercises. I remember we were doing some breathing exercise with you, and one side of your ribs were just not moving in the same way that the other side were. And you could really feel that. And it got me thinking that if we are so disconnected from our bodies, and it is such a wonderful experience to go, oh, yeah, actually, I can feel that difference between one side and the other. And I can feel with just slowing down and tuning in a bit that we can actually improve it. And then there's this kind of curiosity about your body and about movement. And it starts to knit together this kind of relationship that's been so separate for so long, and for so many people, because we've kept them separate, that it's for me the thing that keeps me in movement when people go, oh wait, my body just did that. That's amazing. My body can do something. And reading your book, talking about beauty standards, that was a real pivotal moment for me at university in Trinity. I say Trinity like it's Trinity, darling.
Trinity.
And Trinity. Trinners are winners. God. I still haven't watched. What's that thing that you wanted me to watch that's set there?
The Sally Rooney, Normal People.
Yes, I can't bring myself to watch it yet. I still feel like it's just going to be a little bit like, I will one day.
So close to the moon. Yeah,
say it again.
Can't wait to hear. I can't wait till you see it and to brief afterwards.
To be like, it's exactly as I expected, Emma. I am traumatized. No, yeah, we're working through that. But no, when I got there, I was very different at that time in Dublin in 1997. There were very few black or brown people. Obviously, you had moved over to the UK by then, so I didn't even have you as my bud. And I was just very different from everybody else. You're like, I am gone. Yeah.
I love it so much, though. You know how much I love Ireland, but yeah, I needed to at that time. Yes.
And actually, but you, and I remember us having this conversation, is that you have very much healed your relationship with Ireland. And I still think I have to, I'm not even watching Normal People, you know what I mean? So I need to, that's just definitely something that I need to, re-embrace. But I digress. When I started rowing in my first year, seeing what my body could do rather than it being just this thing to look at or whatever, gave me this strength that it didn't matter that I didn't have the money that everybody else there had. It didn't matter that I wasn't privately educated like everyone else. I could do something that nobody could take away from me, and I owned. And no matter what, that was for me. And then I remember coaching. Then in my third year, I became vice captain of the ladies boat club, which sounds very posh, doesn't it? But the ladies boat club,
it's a very posh place.
Just to say, the ladies boathouse was like this size. It was a literal shed in front of the men's big house. Anyway, that's changed. Neither here nor there. But
you really need to talk to my brother, because he's a Trinity rower as well.
Okay. I forget this. Maybe how old is he?
Ooh, much younger than me, like 27.
Yes, so I want to say that the boathouses are relatively equal-ish at this stage, but definitely now? Before that was not the case. I want to say. I want to say now, because I know I feel they were different. Okay, so maybe it was still
Yeah,
the little
I'm
hut.
sure they were. I'm sure they were. I'm sure
Yeah.
they were.
And then the big house. Anyway, lol to that. And yeah, anyway, so in my third year, I ended up, because I was vice captain, I ended up assisting the main coach with the novices. And I saw that same kind of transformation in them and how they saw themselves, not how they saw their bodies, but how they saw themselves, like this integration of the body and the mind, and how freeing, I suppose, that was for them. And that made me want to become a coach. And I suppose I didn't know how to articulate it at the time, but the experience I felt and the transformation I felt, I could see that in others. And I was like, wow, movement brings this to people. And when they get connected to themselves, it's this wonderful, wonderful thing. So that's kind of, how I started out and why I do movement, I guess, and continue to do it. What do you feel like, bearing in mind your understanding of, kind of where this kind of, I suppose, separation of the body and mind have come from, what has movement done for you, or how has your relationship to movement changed over the years?
As a kid, like I loved dancing. I loved just like kind of dancing like myself. I got diagnosed as hyperactive at a young age. I'm pretty sure that I have ADHD, but I've never had like a subsequent diagnosis. But I had real issues with like attention in school, and then I got this diagnosis as being hyperactive because I had such a complex relationship like with dancing, in that I'd go to like dance classes and kind of not be able to like concentrate like for long enough to kind of learn the routines, and get like really frustrated and then be like, oh, I don't want to do this, but then I still really like loved dancing. But I kind of like couldn't like, I just didn't like thrive in classroom situations, and then I also, growing up as a Black person in Ireland at that time, this is in the 80s now, like so many people had, as you'll know yourself, they'd never seen someone who wasn't white before. Like they'd literally never seen that in real life. And I know that to be the case because I could see how few non-white people there were around. And also because loads of people would say it to me. They're like, oh my God, like I've never met a Black person before. You're the first Black person I've ever met. People have subsequently told me I was the first Black person that they had ever met. So there was very few, and people would describe me as Black mostly. They wouldn't, that would be what they would use to describe me. It would be racialized as Black.
Yeah.
There was very few Black people in the country, but there were so many ideas about Black people that had been absorbed and imported from other places. And there were just like so many stereotypes. And one was the assumption, that you're an entertainer, that you're a dancer. So as well as like in parallel with like my love of dancing, I would have people say things to me like, oh, go on, do your Michael Jackson. Show us your Michael Jackson. And people asking me to like dance for them and things like that, like quite frequently. And I was just like fuck off. Like I'm not dancing. And so I was kind of like, I was kind of developed this like resentment towards dancing because it was like something I was like supposed to do, or people thought I was supposed to like be entertaining in some way. And now similarly with, I hated school, and I really hated school. I went to a lot of different schools. Like I said about like my issues with attention. And so sports, like the people that were real kind of winners in school, which I was not, were really sporty, and that was not me. And again, like there was this assumption. I remember I joined a school and they had basketball and tennis, and I was on the basketball team, and there was this assumption that I'd be deadly at basketball. I was absolutely shite at it. But again, I think there was like this resentment because there was this assumption that I would be good at basketball. Why? It's not like I'm particularly tall, which is, I guess, one of the characteristics that people assume might make you good at basketball. Obviously, there's something else. So I stopped playing basketball, went to tennis. But again, I just found it really hard to concentrate, really hard to apply myself. And I was just like, no, like sports just isn't for me. That's for like the kind of goody. Like, that's not for me. I'm not like a sporty person. I went out clubbing a lot. And so I danced.
That's movement.
A lot. I think for the most part, I was just like, no, sports, that's not for me. And then that's kind of, but I was like obsessed with being skinny, but not, as I write about in the book, that's not something I felt like I was going to achieve through playing sports or exercise, really. That was just through like regulating calories, you know. And it was a different like kind of aesthetic then. I didn't even really want to look like athletic. I just wanted to be skinny, you know. And I think that was certainly like my attitude as well, like throughout my 20s. And when I got to my 30s, I think I started having early 30s, maybe late 20s, I started having like a more of an interest in like kind of doing some form of movement for the perceived like mental and like health benefits. So I'd go to yoga, but I always found it like a real challenge, and like I do it in spurts and then stop. Like I wasn't disciplined enough to keep up with it. And so, yeah, I would do like bits and pieces. But again, I was just like, I think by the time I like reached out to you, and it's so weird, like I didn't know all of the stuff that we had in common. And I'd seen like loads and loads of trainers. And I don't think I'd ever hit anyone up before. And I just like saw you briefly. I can't even remember. I saw you, someone I follow posted, like shared something, posted something about you. And I think it might have been Clara.
Okay.
But I can't even remember. I don't know. I actually don't know where I first saw you. I saw you on Instagram. And I was just like, I was like, oh my God, like and maybe I saw that you were also like in East. Did I see? I was just like, oh my God, and it was in the pandemic.
Yeah.
I had just had a bit, well, I think my youngest child was maybe like 1 or so by then. I think he was 1. But and then when you were like, did we meet in 2020 or 2021? Like I also can't remember.
I think it was definitely, some 2021, I think. That bubble of time.
That period
is a weird,
is so weird to me.
Yeah.
And everything is really like,
you can't remember when we were in or out or what.
Yeah, exactly. And I also had a young baby, so there was all the kind of like fuzzy headedness of that, and like I was still breastfeeding. I think you were one of my only kind of outside world like connections.
That time, of course, because we used to train in your garden world. Do you remember? Because that was all like outside stuff.
Yeah, so it wasn't in a gym or anything. It was just like in that communal garden. Such a weird time.
Yeah.
But I think I was just like, oh my God, I just feel like so sluggish. I just like, my body was like, you need to move. You need to like do something. And so I think that was something of a turning point. And then we were training together for a few months. But then I moved away and I left London. And I think being close to the sea, I started to, again, like I grew up somewhere that was like on the coast, but the idea of getting into like the Atlantic, getting into the sea in Ireland, you know, was just like in the cold. It was just not something I was even, exactly, hell no. It's not even considering it. I'd get into the sea if I was like in the Caribbean, if I was in like the Pacific Ocean,
sunshine,
tropical sea. Yeah, but that was it. Like the idea of getting into the sea in this part of the world. Yeah, exactly. It's a hell no. But I think my body was really like craving, and my body was craving like more movement and more like physical sensation. So I knew that I was moving to like the the seaside, and I started again doing something that would have been very, very foreign to me. In order to like, I was like, I want to start getting into the sea. In order to prepare myself for that before I moved, I started having like like ice cold showers.
I remember this.
And
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I wouldn't have seen myself as that kind of person, like at all, whatever that kind of person
I'm
is.
still not that
And I
person, just
remember
to
like the
say.
first and the first week of doing it, I was just like, oh my God. I felt like I was being tortured. And you could have probably like heard my screams like down the street. I was literally shrieking. But within like over the course of like a week of doing it like every day, I was able to actually just stand in the cold shower and just take it and like not just just be there and
Mm.
not scream, not shriek, actually just be calm. And so I was doing that for a
Mm.
few months. Started going into the cold sea. So these things were happening, like changes were happening like incrementally. I also started doing like hot yoga, like hot pod yoga, which I'm like addicted to now. I'm like so into. And I was definitely moving into a space of like, being a lot more active, physically active, doing a lot more movement. But then last year, I feel like I just got overwhelmed by work. Everything just felt really like chaotic. And
Mm.
I've just written an article about what happened, all of these practices that I had kind of like gotten into place kind of became
Mm.
like vaporized just by like
Mm.
competing deadlines, like just various pressures, like the responsibilities of family life. And by the end of 2023, I was just like, do you know what? I'd kind of like hadn't been getting into the sea. I'd completely stopped doing yoga. And again, I just felt so sluggish. Like my digestion, I felt like internally, like, I just really, really needed to move. And
Mm.
so, like, I didn't make New Year's resolutions, but my goals for 24 were more rest, because I also was not getting enough sleep, were more rest and like more movement, rest and movement.
Mm.
But even before 24 hit, I was just like, I think it was the end of November, I was just like, no, I actually need to start. Something needs to change
Now.
now, because I just
Yeah.
feel wrecked. I just feel
Mm.
absolutely wrecked.
Mm.
And yeah, I got back to yoga, started doing Pilates, reformer Pilates again, which I had done a little bit last year, but like not kept up. Then went to this like incredible this wellness clinic that we were talking about, and I just did a 4-day like reset program. They were like to me, I learned loads of stuff there, but one of the things where they were like, we really, really recommend that you start doing like weight training. And I'd been talking to a personal
A
trainer
vibe.
before I went before I went away. But I hadn't set up any sessions with him because I was just like, oh, I don't have time. I actually like, yeah, and my book was just coming out, everything. I was
Mm.
like all over the place, like traveling, like literally physically, like all over the place. And then as soon as I got back, I hit him up
Mm.
and got into the gym like maybe 2 days after Christmas. And I've been like working out with him like 3 days a week. Like since
Wow.
then, I've been going to yoga loads. I've been going to Pilates
Wow.
loads. Like last night I was in a sauna and like freezing cold, like plunge pool. I'm like
Who is
exercising
this
like every
Emma? I mean,
hour.
who
But
is
what I
she?
want to say is I don't want to be smug, or I don't want to sound smug or try to like make people feel like they're not doing enough. I feel like if I can do this, like literally, like I honestly feel like anyone can, but it's all really integrative, and it's not part of like disciplining myself. I just actually feel better than I have kind of probably at any point in like my adult life. And it's not just because of any one of those things that I can identify. Something else that I'm finding really easy to do, and I'm actually craving to do it, which I struggled with so much in the past, is waking up early. Like I'm getting up at like 5:30 at the moment. I'm meditating. Then I'm actually going back to sleep for an hour, but then like waking up with my kids, but I'm like full of beans. I'm going to bed much earlier. I'm eating like way healthier, and not because I'm obsessed with like what I weigh. I'm not even really weighing myself, but actually because that, with the exercise and the meditation and the yoga and the Pilates and the cold water and all of those things together are just like, you know, cohesively making me feel, giving me a feeling that I want to keep experiencing. You know, sorry, that was so long.
No, that was so great though. And so many different points, because, you know, you saying, even saying that you didn't want to sound like you were, you know, this person saying, oh, you should do this and this and this and this. Like, you've come back to finding joy and movement in yourself, and it's making you feel really good. And that's just like, that's so important and so necessary. And also what's interesting is that you said, you know, all of these different things that you were trying out at different times, whether it's a complete kind of conversion from you never would have stepped in the sea to when you moved to where you're living now, that became, you know, more of a process, and you were prepping yourself, you know, ahead of the move. But that you had built up all of these tiny little practices that also last year all sort of not fell apart, but fell by the wayside, till you got to the point of, oh, I just don't feel. And this idea of feeling and being rather than looking.
Yes.
Rather than this view of what health, you know, looks like how am I in myself? How am I feeling? And I think it's a really important point, because everything working together now in this moment is wonderful. And I think what can happen is, like, say for you at the end of last year, where it was just like, this is shit. People can really berate themselves for it and just be like, oh, I'm such a failure. Now you were like, okay, I need to just something needs to change. And often, you know, kind of being pushed to the edge of like, right, okay, something's, this just needs to change is often a thing that catapults that change for a lot of people. But that you had these tools that you could pick up again and use, and that actually this time came together, because we're only, you know, in January, came together so quickly, and worked so well together, and that these are tools that you always have. And, you know, we all go through these different seasons. It's not to say that in another year's time or 2 years' time you won't again get to a point where everything falls by the wayside, but that it can be picked back up.
Yes.
And, you know, there's something that we talk about in fitness, which is just training age, which is different from your chronological age. And in this case, with you, should that happen, that all of the other variables in life impact your current regime, or, you know, whatever you want to call it, you can look back on this moment in time and go, okay, I've been here before. I know what I need to do to move it forward. And that is just the beauty of having done it, you know, before. But for somebody new, that can feel like, I knew this wasn't going to work for me. I knew I couldn't do it. I know I'm a failure. I don't know. But again, with that experience of it happening again and again and again, you slowly go, okay, I know what I need to do here. And we don't know what's in the future. We don't know what's ahead, and we don't know what's going to throw us off next time, if that is the case. And that's one of the inevitables, right? Is that we're everything is constantly changing. So it is perhaps might happen again. I don't want to say that it, you know, definitely will, but it might. Just having those tools also, you know, that work for you. You found the things that have made you feel really, really good. And they're so different for everybody. and also even what we suggest in the fitness industry. So like when you said strength training, and I was like, woo, woo, like obviously, you know, that's such a passion of mine, again, for how it makes people feel like, oh my God, I actually did that with that. Oh my gosh. And not even necessarily how much weight they've lifted, but they've just having done a movement and the movement feels good. Like that's like, oh yeah, that feels better than it did before. That is such a brilliant connected to your body win. So in the fitness industry, there are certain schools of thought around strength training, around cardiovascular training, around so many different things. But they don't apply to everybody. So for example, you know, I think strength training is brilliant. And I remember chatting with this wonderful woman, and she said, Jocelyn, I used to do a lot of cardiovascular training, like running, biking, whatever. And based on, you know, what you've said and lots of other people in the fitness industry have said about strength training, I then started to do more strength training. And I don't feel good. I'm not really enjoying it. I'm not feeling like myself anymore. And I said to her that despite me being like a big advocate of strength training, you know, across the board, that she may well be that outlier. And actually, maybe it's not the thing for her, because, you know, even research and everything else is the results of is the average, you know, of a group of people who aren't you. So you could be that 0.01% or whatever. And so I said to her, go back to what you were doing before. Give yourself like a few months. Like I always think kind of like 12 weeks. I'm not talking about 12-week transformations, but I think 12 weeks is a good amount of time to test something out. It's long enough that you do the little changes and shifts that you need for it to work in your life in the initial kind of few weeks, and then a long enough time for you to sort of see changes, results, whatever. And I said to her, and I think she's probably now in about the second month of that. So I'll be really, really interested to see in another month's time whether actually her going against what 95% of the fitness industry says about strength training, and actually she came back to her feeling of who she was, her embodiment, I guess. So I think going back to your point is that you found things that really, really worked for you, and so it was really easy to integrate them back in, which may not have been easy to do when your youngest was a year old, or you know, all of a sudden you had two kids rather than one, whatever. Like just those different points at different times are different. For me, I meditate a little. I used to journal a lot. At the moment, that just doesn't really do it for me. So that's one of the tools that I've put down. Meditation I do like, so I do that at the moment. So I'm not rigid with different protocols. I also low-key love that you get up early to meditate and then you go back to bed.
Yeah.
And then you get up again.
So I meditate in bed. I do the 20 minutes. It's like 20-minute transcendental meditation, and then you do like a 10-minute rest period. And then that 10-minute rest period, I just like fall back asleep, and then I've set my alarm for an hour after that. So then I'm up. Great. But I feel great. I feel so good when I wake up. Like I'm cheery, which is nice.
Yeah.
I'm going to bed so much earlier. I just gotten into like such bad habits of like getting into bed and going to sleep like way too late. And then just, you know, like oh God, how did I forget this? My phone.
Yeah.
I've broken the addiction. I'm not saying it won't come back, because these things are compulsive and designed
in that way to be like,
yeah, completely. But I am not really on social media that much. Like I can enjoy. Like I haven't posted like in. Yeah, I'll post again soon. But like I just haven't been. Like it was just and it's not even that thing of like people are like, oh, you know, you're comparing yourself to people. Your feet like it's not even just that. Do you know, that's, I think the primary thing is actually just the assault, just like the deluge, the juggernaut of information that you just cannot process, and that is occupying occupying so much of your consciousness, so that it is not, so that you are not focused on, so you're not just being, you're just like distracted by all of this noise, and it is just taking up so much space and energy. And I feel with like using it in a regulated way now, which is actually, it's really hard to use in a regulated way. You know, it's something that I hadn't managed to kind of do successfully up until now. I feel like that has also just opened up so much more space.
Yes.
So much more space in many different ways.
Yeah. 100%. First of all, I fully agree. When we were away in August of last year, and just at the kind of 11th hour, BJ and I, my husband, both decided that we were just going to be offline for the whole of the 2 weeks. I think we went online for like the last couple of days just to take some photos, just to take some videos. And it was just like kind of on a whim. We didn't make an announcement. Hi guys, I'm going to be offline. It was just like, let's just go offline. And I can remember so much detail about that holiday. And it was very like, we played Uno, we read books, we went for a swim. Like it was super just kind of old school fun. But I can remember genuine so much fun. Detail, genuine fun, genuine connection. And I remember when I came back home, I looked at my phone. Let's say we got back on the Sunday, let's say on the Monday night, I looked at my phone at 9:00 in the evening, and I could not sleep till 3 a.m.
God. Yeah.
And I was like, Then a couple of days after that, I didn't look late at night. And then I was like, let me just test this out again. Did it maybe on the Thursday, couldn't sleep till 2 or 3 a.m. Yeah. And so I had become so desensitized to the blue light, first of all. And then second, you talking about this just barrage of nonstop information that pulls you in and in and in and in. Where on earth are you getting the space to use your mind? And one of a very wonderful woman called Nikki, on a Sunday night, I write down my non-negotiable for the week. And this wonderful woman called Nikki, she talked about scheduling time to think. And I remember I'd read this before, but it never really connected with me, this idea of time to think. And she actually schedules time in her diary to mull over an idea or a project. And I was like, my God, this sounds amazing. And I try, and what connected it for me was that she's, a mother of 2 kids, working full time. All of a sudden I was kind of like, well, if she can do this, then maybe I can. And I started doing it. My God, that combined with reading, because my non-negotiable for this year was deep rest. So high five to that, because you've said the same. Deep rest and deep work. And what I meant by that is not volume of work, but I get to really sink into the work that I'm doing. And I've been reading a book called Deep Work by a guy called Cal Newport. And he talks about that kind of social media distraction and just getting this time to actually think, to actually mull over ideas. And it's been life-changing. I have been so productive, not in a guys, I got so much done today, but actually a deep level of work and thought, which I can't even remember doing in such a long time. Potentially, I'm not even sure I've ever done that before.
I love that for you.
Yeah, so I've really enjoyed it, and I actually recommended it to one of my colleagues, and she was like, I'm only 3 chapters in and this is amazing. My life has changed. So yeah, here's to the deep rest, here's to the deep work. Sorry, you go.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was never like a self-help book girly. I never read those kind of books. And then somebody gifted me, my publisher for Disobedient Bodies, one of the lovely women there, sent me, because we'd been talking about this, and people have been recommending this to me for probably 20 plus years, and I've been like, okay. Grand.
Living the artist's way.
So this is the workbook, but the original book, which I thought was next to me, is called the Artist's Way. Have you ever heard?
I have heard of this, but I have not read it.
Like, oh my God.
Ordering immediately.
Like literally, Like, I know it's like 25 years old or something, so this isn't exactly
But these things stand the test of time, right?
So when you were talking about journaling, Jesus. So you just wake up and you do like you just write 3 pages of like literally
Anything.
anything. And this is supposed to like activate your artist's mind. And you don't like, so obviously like I'm a writer, but she's like, this is sometimes when people are in other mediums, they're like, oh, but it's writing. And I'm like, I'm not a writer. But she's like, no, this is for everyone. This is to unlock like everybody's creativity. And she was saying actually in the book, she says sometimes maybe it's a bit harder for writers because they're more like, oh, I'm writing something. I have to make it good.
Make it something. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't just write like stream of consciousness. I've done it 2 mornings, right? Because I literally just started it. Like, I can't tell you like how like freeing it is. Like it just like removes this like block, because I'm not like, this has to be profound, I have to think what this is going to be about. I'm just writing, and the things that are coming up are like,
wow.
Like, so I'm only 2 days, but I can't.
But already a big change. And so you're just like literally writing any old shit. Or
yesterday I wrote some sort of like, you're not supposed to reread it until the end of the 12 weeks. But from memory, I wrote, like, I'm not a poet. I don't write poetry. I don't know about poetry. I wrote kind of like a beat poetry kind of poem prose thing. Like I'm not speaking to the quality of it or anything, but it was fun. Right. And I was just like, whoa, what are these images? Like, what's like, what is this unlocking? And then what I wrote this morning was more just a kind of documentation of like how I was feeling and my surroundings. But then that kind of became like a meditation on consciousness. It's wild.
Okay. Immediately doing that tomorrow. So
You'll
3 pages. 3 pages I have to write.
9 pages, yeah. But honestly, read The Artist's Way as well.
Right.
Like,
okay.
Immediately. Order it when you get off the phone.
Okay, immediately. I'll get on my... Yeah, no, that's exactly it. I'm going to be on my phone then like... Okay. Oh my gosh, I've loved this so much. So the title of this podcast is Listen Loudly, because I believe you have to listen loudly to yourself in order to be heard by others. And it seems to me like you've just been on this really beautiful movement and embodiment journey, if you like. But is there a point that you can remember where you really listened loudly to yourself in order to be heard by others, that you felt was like quite a pivotal point in your life?
Yeah, like honestly, I can't remember like an exact moment, but I remember from young childhood knowing that I couldn't necessarily do this in relation to everything, but for some reason, specifically in relation to like racism and the racism like that I experienced, I knew that I just had to challenge what was being said to me and what I was being told, and that I had to do it because there was nobody around me who could do it. Like it had to be me. That was like what I needed to do. So I had a sense of that from a very young age. So
How young would you say?
How young? Maybe like 7 or so, that kind of age.
Yeah.
That kind of age. Because I remember being in school and like getting like a troker box. Do you remember those? You weren't in school. Yeah, I
was 7 was when I left, which is quite interesting.
Oh, you were in school till 7. Okay,
yeah.
The troker box was like at Lent, like this cardboard box that you were given.
Yes.
Like black babies.
Yes, the CAFOD box, wasn't it?
Oh, CAFOD was probably was another charity. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. But fine.
And it would have like and at the same kind of time, so it would have like, you know, kind of images from like the famine in Ethiopia, like on the box, and kind of babies, like African babies with distended bellies and like flies in their eyes, all that kind of imagery. And I remember like going to Nigeria and then like coming back and like saying that like, everybody wasn't like really poor and necessarily like relying on this charity.
Yeah.
And it was a real contrast for me because Ireland at the time was very poor, and I lived in, kind of like material poverty,
Yeah.
And then I went to Nigeria, and my Nigerian grandparents were like really wealthy and lived like a lavish lifestyle, like certainly more lavish than anything I was seeing in Ireland at that time. And so I was like, oh, there's this.
You're like, guys,
this
is not it.
Disconnect. Yeah, I know. And I remember like I remember saying this, and like my teacher like taking me out of the classroom and like telling me to, stop lying, and that I obviously had like a chip on my shoulder, and me like, like defending myself. So yeah, I have those kind of memories from a young age, being told certain things about Black people and being like, that's not true. But then that was met with so much resistance. Like I wasn't rewarded for that. People didn't want to hear that. So this idea that I had a chip on my shoulder, that I was very angry, that I was just in that instance they probably just thought I was making shit up because it wasn't it didn't fit their perception of Africa.
Yeah. But also the classics, a chip on your shoulder, angry woman, like all of that. Wow. So that was and it just you saying that you were 7, that was the point at which I left. Or we moved to London, and that opened a world up to me of like, oh, like I just looked around at this like multicultural city, and I was like, oh, okay. And I remember in my head, because I'd only been in Ireland up to that point, I thought for whatever reason that the roads in London would be made of sand. Like I had no concept of like what another country was going to be like. But all of a sudden I was like, oh, wow. But up until that point in Ireland, my brother and I would be cycling down the road and we'd hear, like the N word. And I used to be like, shut up, porridge face, and thought I was hilarious. I was like, that's going to show them. But wow, that really then changed the trajectory of I guess who you are now and the incredible work that you do now. And I remember listening to you in an interview, it was probably about Disobedient Bodies, and that you said that most of the books that you write initially are for your own understanding, and then of course then that's just such a beautiful gift for all of us to read too. So incredible. What's next, Emma?
So yeah, I'm writing a novel. I started it in the years
Babes,
are
we're still trying to catch up on where we are since COVID.
We're 2024 now. So I started in 2022. When I was in America, I was teaching in America.
Yes.
For a semester, I was teaching literature. I was the chair of Irish Studies, and I was teaching a couple of literature and writing classes. And I was just like, you know what, I'm going to get cracking on my own novel. But then lots of things around workload, childcare when I was in America, my PhD, like various things. I was just like, okay, I've got to park this. And then I picked it up again beginning of last year, and then I started writing Disobedient Bodies, and I was doing I had other writing projects, and I was just like, no, I need to stop this again. I'll come back to it. So I've just come back to it again now. Okay. And I'm gonna try and get that done now this year.
Yeah. Amazing. And also I can't believe I said what's next when we were talking about deep rest, but here we are.
Yeah, but
the system's got me. Then what?
The deep rest is key. And I actually to write this book.
Yeah.
Like I'm really like, I've been writing loads like the last 2 days, I only kind of started writing it again like yesterday. And I woke up really early, did my meditation, got the kids to school, did the morning pages, and then just started writing. And I'm just writing in this way that that is far less blocked. And I think that is to do with like those exercises in the artist way, but also just with where I'm at in terms of like, being rested, like getting enough sleep, like feeling present, all of these things. I don't think the aim should be greater. We shouldn't be resting to be more productive.
No.
That is often, being able being able to be more creative, to do more of what you need to be doing is a byproduct, of the rest.
And that's what Trisha Hersey references in Rest is Resistance, that we're not resting so that we can become more productive. We're resting first of all because we just get to rest because we get to, but then like the work that you do has this kind of depth and just these different layers that we, and again it goes back to that separation you were talking about before of like this kind of like snack versus the kind of nourishing thing. There's rest to get more done, or there's rest to really feel like, from this space and place, I can do really, really great work. So, Emma, you're the best. I have thoroughly enjoyed this so much. So Emma's written 3 books and then we've got another one en route. But I'll put them in the show notes again. But the most recent one is Disobedient Bodies. Read it. And then we have What White People Can Do Next. Brilliant book. And then Don't Touch My Hair. So thank you so much. You're a star and a gift.
You're a star.
And I have enjoyed this thoroughly. So I will see you soon, my love.
Same. Thanks for having
me.
Bye.